How's it going? Are you ready to learn about blockchain for business? Or are you just here to learn about crypto? Every once in a while, we get to witness a revolutionary technology that changes everything. And some of us are very fortunate to work in such technology in our career. Business leaders need to feel excited about the opportunity of the fact that we live in a new era of the internet. Yesterday, we watched a movie and we learned about the transition from the era of the internet of information into the era of the internet of value. Hi, everyone. My name is Galya Westler, and I co-founded PLAZUS Technologies, and we help forward-thinking companies to capture the essence of digital data, of the value, of information that they have to move and protect in their business. And today, I will share with you some of the projects that we have been working on to help these businesses implement blockchain. And to be more accurate, to implement blockchain into their business flow. Because when we enter the era of value, we enter an era as business leaders that it is our job to add integrity to our business flows. And how do we do that? Well, when we introduce blockchain technology to businesses, what happens? What happens when you talk to every individual? They look at you and they say, Bitcoin, right? And then you say, well, Bitcoin is what brought us here today. But actually, cryptocurrencies is an amazing implementation of how do you do peer-to-peer payments. But if you look at the examples here, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, you will notice that in the era of value of information, we're able to capture the essence of different business use cases. If you think about use cases where supply chain, you have to ask yourself, why do companies like Apple report 5% of everything that they earn as loss? Why is that? Because when you talk to businesses, you need to talk to them of what are their pain points. It's not going to help if you were to try and shove the technology down their throat. Because when you talk to businesses, you have to talk to them about what matters to them the most. Customers, not to lose their customers. Reputation is really important for them, and their bottom line. So let's go back to the Apple example. Why do they report 5% loss? Well, they report it because in between the different supply chain business process, they manufacture the phone, and then they send the phone to the warehouse, and then to another warehouse all the way where we're from, which is Vancouver, Canada. They bring it to the main mall, and then they ship it to our offices in downtown Vancouver. But along the way, because it's not being tracked, and because there's multiple parties that are involved, the iPhone that was manufactured may get put in someone's pocket. It may get broken. So at the end of it, the bottom line gets affected. And so business leaders have to feel excited about the opportunity for them to really make a difference with keeping their customers, making sure their reputation is not at harm, and positively affecting their bottom line. Today, I wanted to talk to you about a significant pain point that businesses have, and we're dealing with global businesses. So if we were to take, for example, in the gaming industry, some of which of you here are dealing with gaming industry, you know that in the gaming industry, they have to, if they're content providers, they have to capture the funds from the different operators that they serve, and then transfer the funds to their users, to their gamblers. Another type of company that we're dealing with is global HR. What is global HR? They hire on behalf of really big companies like Facebook and Google and Airbnb, which they do not have legal entities in many, many, many countries around the world. And what do they have to do? They have to transfer salaries. Now, why is cross-border payments such a big, big pain point? Because research indicates, and you probably know this as well without knowing the research, that the challenges come from it being an unaffordable and inefficient process. So what do you do with an unaffordable process that is inefficient, that is costing you so much money, and there's so many multiple parties that are involved? What do? You try to solve it. But a lot of the things that are being solved are actually not being solved using blockchain. Because blockchain is not the solution for everything, but it's a solution to add and shed visibility into transactions. For able to have automation into the transactions that are happening between the businesses, and the fact that they have to do cross-border payments to their vendors, to their clients, to their users. So the solution that we have, the two innovations that we're doing, is we're actually able to provide local payments using SEPA and cross-border payments using SWIFT, doing wire payments with low foreign exchange rates and with low wire fees. And the settlements that we're doing, we're not doing that on blockchain. We're actually using one of our liquidity providers and our payment providers using Barclays Bank. And that is the reason why, to solve their first pain point, which is how do they deliver these funds to their suppliers, to their vendors, to the users, they use regular banking. So solving the escalating costs that are happening, especially if they work in very regulated countries. The second thing that we're able to do is building self-serve portals. We're actually able to tackle another problem that businesses have. Anybody heard of Salesforce? Some people. Okay, it's just like a multi-successful company. Salesforce as a CRM is just an example. One of the issues that businesses have is when they need to manage their operations, meaning that, for example, they just bill the client, right? They send the money off to Brazil. And they need to bill the client, they need to invoice the client, they need to make the payments, they need to integrate into their accounting system. A lot of times, they end up paying very, 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 very high fees of licensing cost. So, in the case of one of our clients, they have about 1,000 different customers, which they employ hundreds of thousands of workers globally. What they need to do is, before they implemented a self-serve portal, they actually dealt with that manually. So they went to their accounting system, off they go, they pay somebody in the accounting system, and they manufacture an invoice, and then they go to their bank, and they open the online banking, which we all love and know, and then they enter the payment. And then what happens? A lot of times, payments get rejected. A lot of times, the banks actually reject them altogether, because when you deal with companies that they have to hire in different exotic countries, they're actually not able to deliver the funds efficiently. And so the funds get rejected. A lot of times, when you enter things manually, you actually make a lot of mistakes, because as humans, we make mistakes. So what we do is, with a combination of using regular banking and a combination of using smart contracts, what we do is we automate these different business processes, and I'll show you an example of how exactly it's being done. But the idea behind it is to be able to solve the pain point of the client, yet automate their business flow in order to make it a lot more seamless and to add integrity to everything that they do. So when you deal with regular banking solutions using different algorithms, you're actually able to do KYC and AML, which I know there's companies here that do it using blockchain technology. You're able to do that with the regular channels. But what happens when those companies, for example, gaming companies, what happens when they operate in areas like Latin America, where a liquidity provider is not able to provide the regular banking services? So what happens in such countries, and I'll give you another example of a project, in Mexico, they wanted to have some sort of a currency that is attached to the regular currency. Let's take, for example, the Mexican peso. They wanted to have a currency that will be stable enough, that will not change, that they will be able to see the online payments, and that they can invite parties to be able to see these transactions. So in that project, we built a private, using Hyperledger Fabric, we built a private blockchain for universities, unions, students that get their scholarships from the university, and unions that get their salaries union workers that get their salaries from the union, they were able to basically solve the issue of what do we do in a country where there's lots of regulations, we don't like the banks, or the banks are not approving us, and we need to be able to have visibility and transparency into online payments. So one of the solutions that we offer them to do is you can use the regular banking solutions that we can introduce to you, but you can also use a digital wallet with a digital coin that is attached to your currency to be able to track that the money that you're giving, for example, to the students, or the money that you're giving to the gamblers that are winning your games is money that has been approved by the different parties that are now part of this blockchain solution. And what we're able to do with combination of the banking solution that we have is consolidate their bank accounts into an online payment system that can be tracked from the one hand. From the other hand, we're actually able to provide them with virtual banking accounts. And virtual banking accounts, of course, there's limitation to what the liquidity provider is allowing us to do. But overall, you're talking about quite a lot of countries. In particular, we're now in Europe, so we talk about a solution that is very valid for European countries. And doing so, you're alleviating their pain of how do we deliver the funds between 1 to 2 days? How do we do it with the lowest wire fees? And how do we get the best foreign exchange rate when we need to transfer, for example, British pounds onto a currency such as the real? So you're able to do that using the regular banking, and then the business processes that are around it. For example, approval layers. I can approve a payment going of $10,000 here to Anton. Don't catch me on that exact figure, Anton. But I'm able to approve a $10,000 limit of a fund that's being transferred to, for example, Estonia. And because we have bank accounts in the UK, we have bank accounts in Canada, we're able to create a virtual bank account in Estonia so that when we deliver the funds, we deliver it with a local payment. Which means that now, if you think about it, local payments can go down to 40 cents. But if I was to transfer the funds, which we've done that and still do that, from Canada all the way to Estonia or to the UK, we now have to pay about $50 for a wire. Now, with regards to the approval process, so I need to approve it. The signatory on the bank account needs to approve it because it's in and around $10,000. And who's to say that there's integrity around that process? Then what we need to do is we need to have a legal contract, because when we onboard a worker, we need to onboard a worker with a certain condition. So they're going to get $10,000 every 30 days if they do a certain action. And then the legal advisor, the lawyer, has to approve it. And then when we onboard the worker, then we have to get them a visa, right? Because they have to work in a certain area of the world. And so the visa immigration officers, they have to look into that information. And what do you do when you have multiple parties that they do not share the same database? You need to provide the proof that these conditions were met on the blockchain. Let's talk about HR, and let's talk about GDPR. And I'll show you this example. So how do you take regular businesses that know nothing about blockchain, and how do you implement blockchain in their business flow? We already talked about the solution of allowing them to do payments. Then we talk about the solution once they do the payments and they onboard their workers, they onboard their vendors into a self-serve portal, we now get to integrate that into their accounting system. Then what they want to do is they want to give access to their clients to see the invoices, for the users to see their pay stubs, for their vendors to see every single activity that happened between their relationships. So what happens is when you build them a portal, and this portal, you can build it without blockchain, obviously, you give them access into the portal based on the roles and permissions. So if you say, for example, that a client can only see their invoices, that they can see their invoices, then cannot see the invoices of another client, obviously. But if you were to onboard this client using Salesforce or using Sage or using other systems that all of us are currently using, you end up paying very, very hefty fees on licenses. Now let's drill down into the business flow of of our client, and they have to hire for Airbnb in Germany. The workers that they hire belong to our client. The workers do not belong to Airbnb because the client is the one that is doing the payroll and is the one that is hiring them. What just happened? You have multiple parties, the client, you have the worker that actually doesn't deal with our client directly because they work for Airbnb, and then that worker that they wanted to bring to Germany is actually from a different country. So now you have the visa officers that have to process their visa. And before all of this is done, there is no onboard. The worker cannot start their job. So what we do is, in order to make this process very efficient, we add all of these conditions of the onboarding as proof onto the blockchain. And it doesn't mean that we put that information, that sensitive information, onto the blockchain. What we do is, using smart contracts, is we automate the process. For example, I am the manager of the worker from Airbnb. The worker has seen this onboarding form, filled it up, and pressed submit. So there's a second condition. Then the sales department signed the legal contract agreement with Airbnb for them to pay $10,000 to that worker every month, right? So that's another third party. There's another condition. And then once all the parties signed the legal contracts, then we can move it along to the visa officers. So the visa officers are going to come in, and they're going to check their passport information, their health records, they're going to check where they lived before, their experience, and they're going to make sure that it complies with the visa rules of the country that it's supposed to move to, which is Germany in this case. After the visa is signed and approved, then the payroll begins. So the worker is being onboarded. Now they have access onto the portal. They log into the portal. They can see their pay stubs. Oh my God, it's amazing. The pay stub was actually paid within 1 day, which is actually phenomenal. The worker, or the staff, the customer that is managing all this different effort, logs into the portal with their own permissions. They're able to see all the clients, all the invoices. They can see the workers, every worker that was paid. And then what they do is they're able to submit the tax in order to pay tax for the country that the worker was at. When the employment ends, something really strange happens. Disputes happens. Can you imagine why there are disputes when somebody ends, their employment is ending? Do you know why? Because in different countries, there's different rules, but I can tell you for a fact that one of the issues that our customers are facing is when they have to end a contract agreement with someone, it was technically their worker, but it was actually working for another entity, such as Airbnb. So if you don't have visibility as to what happened while they were employed, as to what happened when the employment agreement was signed, you end up in a dispute that's going to say the following: you just let me go from this position at Airbnb, but I noticed that you didn't pay my holiday, the holidays days that I was supposed to get. So now I can sue you for the fact that you haven't paid me for the holidays. But if there was proof to the fact that there was a condition that said that you get, for example, 14 days of holiday request, and in the portal that exists for them, you submitted 14 days of holiday request, there is proof to the fact that we did pay you that holiday request, and you can see the proof to that. Second thing that they can do using automation and proof on the blockchain, GDPR. Anybody familiar with GDPR? Am I in the right continent? Oh, I am in the right continent. Okay, great. So with GDPR, which you've shown the light to all the other countries of the world, you need to be able to exercise the proof, the right to be forgotten. So what happens with GDPR? 3 things. Number one thing that happens is the most important and difficult thing that you need to do as businesses is you need to locate where is that information of the worker, and actually your clients as well, and your vendors and your suppliers, where is that information that belongs to a European citizen resides in the different databases, including Salesforce, including Sage, including all the different systems. Once you locate that, then what we do is we run a script based on the rules of that country. Are we allowed to delete such information? And when the request comes from the user to delete that information, for example, I want you to delete my email address, but you cannot delete my social security number because you need it for tax purposes, then what we do is we provide that proof onto the blockchain so that when disputes happen, and disputes are happening with regards to GDPR, they can have proof of who authorized it, at what time, what information, and according to which law of the country. So what you can see at the end of it all is when you talk to businesses to implement blockchain for their business, you need to talk to them in their terminology. How do you save on payment fees? You can see a comparison. I don't need to read this out to you. That's why there's a slide. There's a huge difference. Because when you have a big liquidity provider such as Barclays, you're able to lower the fees and actually create a machine that not only saves them money, but can make them money. Because with the layer of fat that is left, you can actually make money for your organization. The second thing that you can do, and this has nothing to do with blockchain, is when you integrate everything into one portal for your business, you're able to save on the licensing cost and the manual processes that you have been doing so far. And this has to do with the integration, and that's where the future is when you want to integrate really big projects and introduce blockchain technology. You know, once in a while, we get to witness different types of technologies. But I think that all of us here today would agree that this technology that we talk about, blockchain technology, has the opportunity to change the world. And I urge you, whether you are a business leader or you work for an organization and you can talk to your business leaders, you need to find ways to add integrity to your business so that we can create a future that will be fair for all of us.